Glasgow, Celtic will be there.
I think there needs to be more songs, like more team songs now.
Oh, I think so too. Well, listen, that's only on this side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like Habs, we're starting it. We got some songs. We have songs. We sing na 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 na. We sing ole ole ole.
Yeah.
But no, that's part of the fun. That's part of how you fall in love with a team on the other side of the ocean. Is half of it's the songs they sing.
Jay Baruchel, known best for films like Knocked Up, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, How to Train Your Dragon. But a new documentary explores his love for a whole other team and a whole other continent. I'm Tom Power. This is Q.
My name is Jay Baruchel,
And I'm Eoin O'Callaghan.
and we are Celtic supporters.
Jay is featured along with his friend Eoin O'Callaghan in a documentary called Celtic Soul that follows their journey through Ireland and Scotland to watch a Celtic football club game in their home stadium. That's coming up.
The place where you think you stick out is the place where you should stick it out and ride it out. And you can offer something new, and it can sometimes be quite lonely and quite disheartening or frustrating, but ultimately you're bringing something different to the table.
In Rogue One, his character flips sides, but off-screen, actor Riz Ahmed likes to stay put. Today you'll hear how standing his ground when he felt he didn't belong landed Riz in the Star Wars universe.
I've been looking for the conqueror, but you don't seem to go my way.
Katy Perry says it's, quote, music that makes her heart flutter. But will Aurora do the same for you? The Norwegian singer is here to sing songs from her debut record. You've got to hear her voice. She's only 20 years old, but sings like a person that's lived 1,000 lives.
If I go out, I'm done at 1:30. I'm not a party guy because I'm an early bird.
You got Fruit Loops to eat.
I have Fruit Loops. I have to wake up. I was dreaming of them last night. Oh, man, I can't wait to open those Fruit Loops.
I'll go on record saying that this is the hungriest I've ever been during an interview. Sidney Bateman and Melvin Diggs are acrobats in a stage show called Cuisine Confessions. Think of it as Iron Chef at the circus. There's banana bread, body contortion, aerial tricks, omelets. It's wild. Sidney and Melvin are going to tell you all about it and where they came from coming up. All of this along with Canada's smartest person host, Jessi Cruickshank, happening right now on Q.
What do you look like?
I shouldn't have gone in there. Don't go in there. Promise me you don't go in there.
Canadian actor Jay Baruchel is a guy who has a lot of fans. A lot of people are fans of his stoner comedies with Seth Rogen, or maybe as the voice of Hiccup in the How to Train Your Dragon movies. But there's something else about Jay. Not only does he have fans, he is a huge fan. You might know he's passionate about the Montreal Canadiens. He also happens to be pretty obsessed with the Scottish soccer club Celtic, so much that he made a film about it. It's called Celtic Soul. It's the story of Jay Baruchel and his good buddies, sports journalist Eoin O'Callaghan, taking a trip across Ireland and Scotland. The goal, to watch their beloved Celtic play at their home stadium in Glasgow. But the film isn't just about Celtic. Celtic Soul is a look at heritage and what it means deeper to be a fan. Here's our conversation. I think the first question has to be Jay as a Montrealer. Mm-hmm. I mean, your name is Baruchel NDG.
Yeah.
Like strong Montrealer.
Yeah.
How do you get into the Celtic Football Club? What makes you a fan?
A bunch of different things. It's hard to find the sort of light bulb moment necessarily, but it's I think it stems from the fact that my mother was 6 of 8 kids in an army family from the Maritimes. She's only like the second Quebecer in her family. We go back in Nova Scotia over 200 years before that, and part of that, you know, especially when you grow up with a family from the East Coast, there's a real sense of heritage and tradition,
of course.
And all these different things, patrimony, whatever you want to call it, and so we were always made aware of our Irishness, and so when I was a teenager and I saw Henrik Larsson score a goal for Celtic, and then shortly after that saw Aidan McGeady come on the scene, and he was one of my favorite players, still one of my favorite players of all time. And then hearing the songs that everyone was singing and seeing the shamrock and the white and green, and then learning about the history, it only got me more and more into it. And like there are certain teams like the Habs that reward your fandom, right? And you can be a lifelong Habs fan and still only know a fraction of the story and the history. And Celtic is one of those teams. And like the Habs, once I've joined this fraternity, it's seen me in such good stead. I've had strangers open their worlds and their lives to me, from the small end of kind sentiment to constant offers to sleep over places and stuff. And I just so basically carried away in the storm of history, heritage, culture, and the story of the Irish immigrant saga, which is, has a lot to do with my family and is the origin myth of Celtic.
Oh, and you yourself, I mean, if you're listening to this right now, you probably know Jay from, movies and from television back from when he was a youngster in Canada. But you are a lesser-known figure, though you did host this show that aired in Canada, that was taped in Canada, the Fox Soccer Report.
Yes, this unique. If ever there was a subject that required a documentary to be made about it, Fox Soccer Report is definitely it.
Everything about it is so bloody specific. Tell us.
What do you mean?
Where you did it, why you did it.
So I came to Canada initially in 2009 to Vancouver just for a 12-month visa, see a different part of the world.
Hang around.
And obviously I'm a sports journalist, so Winter Olympics are happening in Vancouver. But I watched this TV show every night. This show called Fox Soccer Report, and I went, this is great. And I did some digging around and realised it was Canadian produced. So Fox in LA want this nightly soccer show to go right across North America, into the Caribbean, Central America. And they had a relationship with a CanWest-owned channel called Fox Sports World Canada. Right. And essentially they outsourced the production to Canada to make it a little bit cheaper. And the studio that they found was in Winnipeg.
So at one point in the film you say, because you're talking about, it's a real shout out to Winnipeg, because you guys are talking about how beautiful Canada is, and Jay's like, Canada's so beautiful, the East Coast so beautiful, center of the province so beautiful, center of the country, and you're like, well, I lived in Winnipeg, and Jay kind of goes, oh yeah, Winnipeg, that's nice.
It's a city in our country.
Yeah. So and you end up taping the show and living in Winnipeg for a while.
I lived in Winnipeg for about 2.5 years, and so when are you coming here? And people
so
are
there's
like,
this accent in the arse end of Winnipeg in a blizzard talking about giving us Argentine soccer results.
Are you watching it
every night?
Yeah.
I taped it. I would DVR it and watch it every night before I go to bed. That was like...
And not just Jay. I mean, I've had emails from high-profile sports executives right across North America.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've just made so many contacts from a professional perspective through this show that was produced in Winnipeg.
So what happened?
Skeleton crew.
JJ reaches out to you.
Yeah, we started chatting on Twitter, just like we were both following each other, like, hey, man, like what you do, hey, vice versa, blah, blah, blah.
Well, the truth behind that is, when I'm at home in Dublin and there's a message that pops up in my email and says, Jay Baruchel has followed you on Twitter, my reaction isn't as kind of like, hey,
cool,
yeah, Jay Baruchel's followed. I turned to my wife and went, my fiance at the time went, babe, Jay Baruchel has just followed me on Twitter.
Right.
She's a little bit more excited.
Which one is that? Is he the one from the Mac commercials?
She
or
knew
whatever?
exactly.
Yeah.
She's that adorable
she
guy.
Didn't know who I was.
Did you write the draft email and then delete it and then write it again?
Listen,
and then not delete it?
It was preposterous, the entire process. It was every text message I'd go to send, it's like, that comes across as a bit too needy. It was like online dating. I mean,
I'm trying to make us sound normal, Owen. I was trying to be like, we just chatted and eventually like this could be a movie.
Good luck with that.
And you're all like going through the nuances of our meet cute.
Owen got a haircut. He got a new shirt just to send the Twitter message.
There was pressure, man.
Lindsay ironed his shirt for Skype.
Yeah. But the film, I should say, if you watch the film, it's not. You'll think it's about the Celtic football team and the football club, but it's not. In many ways, it's about the trip.
Yeah.
It's about the journey, right?
It's about the journey and about sort of an effort to figure out who we are better. Me specifically, for sure.
And Owen, did having Jay there and you guiding him through your country make you reevaluate the way you look at your country?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think Irish people, by their very nature, distance themselves from the past, particularly.
Yeah.
It's not something that we dwell on.
It's complicated. It's
complicated,
past.
and we also don't do well with compliments and self-promotion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this is also bizarre for me. So when you take someone into your environment and show it off, it just doesn't fit very comfortably for an Irish person. Yet I just was filled with an enormous sense of pride because, you know, we'd been in Montreal and Jay showed me around and I got to bring him to Croke Park and I got to show him our national sport and I got to show him this is us, you know, this is our culture and this is 80,000 people paying in to watch an amateur thing take place.
And for us on this side, coming over there, it's almost like going to your grandparents' house for the first time, where it's familiar, but it's also far older and different.
I want to talk a little bit about when you got back to Canada. Did it feel any different?
Oh, big time.
Yeah, not just your fandom, but also just your life in Canada. Did it feel different?
Yeah, it just like anytime you leave, it should affect how you feel when you come back. And if it doesn't, that's just because you're numb and cynical. I was invigorated and I came back with a stronger sense, a renewed sense of where we came from and where we can go. And also of how good we have it and that as much as we do each other's heads in, for the most part, it's been more or less okay on the day-to-day here.
And Owen, are you a Habs fan now?
Oh, dyed in the wool.
You joined on?
I recently went to Old Navy and bought myself a Habs hoodie.
Attaboy, Owen.
Yeah.
God
I was like,
bless ya.
I owe it to Jay Baruchel.
I want to thank you both for coming in and
Thanks for having
congratulations on the documentary.
Cheers, bud. Thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure. You may have seen Jessi Cruickshank hosting CBC's new lifestyle show, The Goods, possibly overseeing some of this country's sharpest hacks on Canada's smartest person. The other day, Jessi dropped by Studio Q to throw down the gauntlet for a battle of wits with some of the show's mind-bending challenges. As I say in the interview, this is not a show I ever watch and go, oh yeah, I can do that. So am I Canada's smartest person? Spoiler alert, no. But check this out.
Okay, Tom, you dominated the physical intelligence challenge.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. I was surprised.
As was I. But this challenge is not going to be chill. It is a visual intelligence challenge. It's called Fractured Photo.
Okay.
There are some art-hating heathen has shredded a gorgeous scenic photograph of Newfoundland. It is our job to put the pieces back together in the frame in the correct order.
I feel like it's going to be extra disappointing when I mess this one up because I think I used to live on that street.
Is that true?
I used to live on the corner of Gower Street and I can't remember the name of Cochrane Street going down. So it'll be extra, I'm not kidding. So it's going to be extra embarrassing when I mess this up.
Well, now the pressure is on.
Oh, yeah,
so in our
100%.
first challenge, there was no pressure. Now you carry the entire weight of a province on your shoulders.
I really feel like the Danny Williams of the CBC right now.
As you should.
Thank you.
Fractured Photo begins in 3, 2,
Oh, no.
1,
Okay.
go. Okay,
All right,
and for
I
the
think
record, I've never done this before.
I think Barb, my mom's friend Barb, lives in the blue house.
We got it. We have to put it together and see if there are any actual faces of people. So the thing with this is it's not like that puzzle that you do at the cabin because there's no photo on the inside of the lid. Like we're just making it up from our brains. There's no reference in it. I hope you're nervous because this is going kind of well for me.
Are you doing well?
I think, no.
No.
All right.
No.
All right.
We have a competitor this season who's like swears like a sailor the entire show.
Is it Don Cherry? Yes, it's Don Cherry, isn't
That's
it?
season 4.
Oh, yeah.
Celebrity. You should do celebrity.
Celebrity smartest person?
Yeah, celebrity smartest
I
person.
don't think there's enough celebrities who would.
No, I know. That's why you got me. I get it.
Can we like phone a friend? Is there anyone here who can help us with this?
Barb, I got
What?
Barb.
This one? Whoa!
Hey,
Oh!
You're getting help, Jessi, and I don't
Oh!
like it at all.
Oh!
Do not
Hang
like this.
on. Wait a second. Gower Street is coming to life
like this at all.
before my very eyes.
No, I don't like this at all.
We do have a hockey commissioner on this season, though, I will say.
Gary Bettman?
It's unfortunately not.
No.
No.
Jessi, this is stressful as all hell.
So I'm telling you, I'm sweating through my jaunty blouse.
Me too. I'm sweating through my jaunty blouse too.
Oh, Newfoundland.
Yeah, there is a severe bias, but I know this town pretty well.
Whoa, you're all over the. Oh no! Oh no! It's come down to a couple of pieces, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey!
Aurora is not Canada's smartest person, but I'm going to say he's pretty darn close.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on your show.
Still to come on Q, Star Wars. Rogue One star Riz Ahmed joins us to talk about taking on the Empire.
The character I play is Bodhi Rook, and he's not the kind of son or grandson of anyone important in the Star Wars saga. He's just a long-distance truck driver.
But first, a chat and spectacular performance of the song Conqueror from Norwegian singing sensation Aurora.
Broken me and broken diamond, you are broken too.
Just like her home country, her voice is expansive, beautiful, enigmatic. Norway's Aurora is a 20-year-old singer with the maturity of an artist twice her age.
I was listening to the ocean. I saw a face in the sand.
She burst to attention about a year ago with a well-timed cover of David Bowie's Life on Mars. That cover got airplay on Girls on HBO, which had millions of ears tuned to her debut record, All My Demons Greeting Me as a Friend. Aurora recently stopped by Studio Q for an interview and a performance. Here's Aurora's performance of Conqueror, along with some of my conversation with her in Studio Q. Aurora, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
There's a lot of people in Canada who are hearing you for the first time, and I'm so happy that they are. You mentioned, and I know this about you, you started writing songs when you were very, very young. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Like nine or 10 years. Were you writing before you were 9?
Well, I wrote melodies when I was 6, but I didn't add words to them before I was 9 because I think it's hard for us to speak about our emotions, and sometimes we need a song.
Do you feel that sometimes we don't have the language to talk about how we want to feel?
Oh yes, and I think sometimes we don't understand how we feel or why we feel sad. Why are we heavy in our chests, and how do we explain it, and how do I answer my friend who's feeling sad? How do I make him feel better? You know, it's hard for us, I think, sometimes to communicate with these things because it goes so deep within us, and we're so afraid to bother people with our darkness. And I think a song can be such a good friend.
Well, it goes back to what you said about the idea that sometimes sad songs can be, sad emotions, sad feelings can be played in kind of a jaunty, kind of happy way.
Oh yeah.
We can't quite figure out our own darkness sometimes, but we can express it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be sad to express it. Is that what you're saying?
No.
The music doesn't have to be sad to express it.
No, it doesn't, because I think laughter and tears are very close to each other, and sometimes we can be really sad and just laugh because it's just emotions.
Aurora, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Well, thank you.
Broken mornings, broken nights, and broken days in between. Open ground, the sky is open, makes an open scene. And just like in fiction, in every addiction of fantasies taking over, awake me. I've been looking for the conqueror, but you don't seem to come my way. I've been looking for the only one, but you don't seem to come my way. Broken me and broken diamond, you are broken too. Open ears, their eyes are open, makes me call for you. But there's no seduction, only destruction. Of fantasy, take me over and break me. I've been looking for the conqueror, but you don't seem to come my way. I've been looking for the only one, but you don't seem to come my way. I've been looking for
Coming up, Aurora performs another hit from her latest record in Studio Q. But first, I talked to Riz Ahmed about joining the rebellion in Star Wars Rogue One.
All right. How many do I need?
It just feels cool to know that people will definitely see this. You know, a lot of the movies I've done, it's kind of like you're not sure if anyone will go and see it, whether it was Shifty or Four Lions or even Nightcrawler. So for me, coming from that background, it just feels really exciting and it's just a massive relief. It takes a lot of pressure off, actually.
Well, if you're not familiar with the actor Riz Ahmed, here's your chance. The actor and musician, he's been on quite the rise this past year. A critically acclaimed lead performance on HBO's The Night Of, a blockbuster acting gig in the latest Jason Bourne film, and most famously, and maybe what you're most excited about, a role in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. But Riz has been getting noticed for more than just his work on the big and small screen. He recently wrote a frank op-ed for The Guardian about his experiences traveling through airports as a Brit of Pakistani descent. He's drawn links between being racially profiled and the Hollywood audition process. We get into all of it, and of course some Star Wars fanboy stuff. With Riz Ahmed, he'll tell you to live long and prosper. Wait, that's the other one. Okay, here's our conversation. I'm hoping that you can maybe start with a story. And a story that really stuck out to me in reading about you is going back to your time in high school. At a time, sixth form, which I believe is like grade 11, grade 12 in Canada.
It's about like 16 to 18 years old.
16 to 18, so you're older. You're getting to the end part of high school. You're feeling like your teachers, your student organization wasn't fairly representing the interests of the entire student body. You decide to do something about it. What exactly did you decide to do?
They have an election. So that's so funny, you know, about that thing. You have an election, the student body vote for the boys they want to be the kind of prefects, the monitors, you know, the head boy.
The upperclassmen sort of.
Exactly,
Sure.
There we go. And so you do a vote and then the teachers kind of do another vote on top of that. And the idea is that it's a kind of democratic process. But I think the school over the 7 years that I was there was going through a lot of growing pains. It was transitioning from a kind of generally white upper middle class school to something that was a bit more diverse, both in terms of the cultures and classes that were represented there. And I felt like the upperclassmen or the school establishment didn't really reflect that. So I kind of got the whole year group together in the lunch break and I said, we all got to do this vote. Let's rig the vote. Let's all just vote for boys that have been suspended and boys that are black or Asian. Because we never get to be part of, you know, the establishment in this school. And pretty much, I mean, it was a secret ballot, so I don't know how many people voted for it, but it was enough people did that it kind of caused a big furore at school. And I was one of the people that the boys all voted for because I was kind of got into a lot of trouble, and obviously I'm not white. And yeah, I think the teachers then get to kind of either validate that round of student voting or blackball it, which means veto it.
So they can say no even if the students vote.
Yeah, so they put like a black balls against people who they say under no circumstances can they be prefects. And yeah, I kind of got a record number of black balls, which I take with a kind of bit of pride, I guess. Childish person that I am. But I guess it was just trying to throw up a point about kind of, you know, what do we get a say? But in a way, it kind of triggered a larger conversation at the school, and then they started kind of all these focus groups with different, you know, minority groups at the school to try and be a bit more representative and understanding. So I was glad that, you know, doing a stunt like that kind of created a larger conversation at school.
It's a word that's used, I think, a little bit too much. It's become one of those buzzwords, but it still works here, which is a disruption. And you feel like that disruption that you kind of brought to the school at that moment, and then when you went into Oxford, the disruption that you had by getting involved with ethnic minority representation on the campus theater stage. What was driving your desire, and what does drive your desire to take all of these actions?
You know, Oxford's actually kind of an interesting example because when I first arrived there, it was a really big culture shock for me. I'd kind of previously won this scholarship to go to a private school, so there was already some element of kind of I know, code switching between the kind of environment I grew up in,
Which wasn't
at home.
it wasn't an upper middle class. It wasn't an Oxford-y kind of.
No, not at all. And the school I'd gone to, but the jump from the school even to Oxford was even greater. So it was quite a culture shock for me, and I felt a kind of like, I don't know. I mean, the first person I met there told me I remind them of Ali G. You know, and they meant that as a kind of compliment, like, oh, hey, cool, you're like that, you know, weird character on TV.
Oh, good. Great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of thought I should leave. I didn't really want to stick around there. And then that's when I kind of realized that actually that's exactly what I should do. The fact that I don't feel like I belong there means that other people feel like they probably don't belong there, right? Like none of us are that special or unique. So maybe it would be a good opportunity to try and kind of make some space for people like me. So what I did was I started a club night called Hit and Run, and it was a kind of hip hop drum and bass club night. And it kind of, at that time I was kind of rapping a lot on the London pirate radio station scene. So it allowed me to kind of continue honing my skills as an MC, but also just create a space to meet like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a runaway success, particularly because there was nothing else like it there. And it kind of taught me a lesson that, you know, where the place where you think you stick out is the place where you should stick it out and ride it out. And you can offer something new, and it can sometimes be quite lonely and quite disheartening or frustrating, but ultimately you're bringing something different to the table. And so in a way it was quite a good training for the film industry in a way, where I also felt like maybe I wasn't seeing myself reflected back when I was you know, watching TV or watching films, and those moments when I felt discouraged or frustrated or invisible were the moments where I remembered that experience and thought, okay, so because everyone's kind of implicitly telling you don't belong here, this is exactly where you should be.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you can kind of make a change and offer something different.
But also communicating that. Your op-ed, which I mentioned in The Guardian, was shared widely, even in Canada, about your experience of being someone who's British, of Pakistani descent, and a lot of people related to you.
Well, I mean, it was a great feeling, you know, to see that people kind of related to that. And to be honest, it was a bit of a surprise, because I think all of us in our own way are taught to think that maybe our own individual experience isn't that interesting or relatable, you know. That there's something else, there's another story happening elsewhere that's cooler or more relatable or more mainstream or more, you know, exciting to be told. And that's probably true. I don't think I've got the most relatable, exciting, sexy story to be told by any stretch of the imagination. But I don't think that should mean people shouldn't, you know, talk about their own experiences.
Yeah.
And an interesting lesson I've learned this year is, both with the essay and with my Englistan mixtape and the Sweatshop Boys album, is actually that the more honestly and specifically you kind of mine your own personal experience, the more it resonates with people, even if they can't relate to its specifics. What they relate to is the kind of authenticity of what you're saying, just the honesty of it. And that's been a kind of big lesson for me in general this year. And the reason I wrote it wasn't because I thought loads of people are going to relate to it and people would share it and it would go viral. The reason I wrote it is kind of the opposite. I wrote it just for myself, just to get it off my chest, under the assumption that no one would care about it. I mean, who can relate to that? Who can relate to, like, oh, people asking you for a selfie while they're swabbing you for explosives? That's probably not a very common experience. But just in speaking about your experience, honestly, I think it does connect with people. So that's been really encouraging to me, and I hope it's encouraging to other people who feel that maybe their story is too weird or unrelatable to be spoken about.
If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with Riz Ahmed. We were just speaking about his piece in The Guardian that was shared widely in Canada. But what I want to talk about next is a little different. I want to talk about Star Wars. You are part of the new Star Wars film. Tell me a little bit about the character you play in there.
Well, the character I play is Bodhi Rook, and he's not the kind of son or grandson of anyone important in the Star Wars saga. He's just a long-distance truck driver, essentially. He's an Imperial cargo pilot. He's from an occupied planet called Jeddah, which is occupied by the Empire, and so to earn a living, he works for the Empire. You know, just carrying cargo long distance in his shuttle. And it's in the course of this job that he kind of comes across some information that makes him go through a kind of awakening, which is what Bodhi means. And he kind of decides to, well, he just makes some very fateful decisions.
There's a different kind of fandom that you find with Star Wars fans than you find with really any other kind of fan subculture. Does that pressure feel different than it felt in previous roles you've done?
I mean, to be honest, this was my first studio movie. Everything I'd done up to this point was kind of indie movies and you know, some TV series. Yeah. So it just feels cool to know that people will definitely see this. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of the movies I've done, it's kind of like you're not sure if anyone will go and see it, whether it was Shifty or Four Lions or even Nightcrawler. Just not sure if it'll just disappear. So for me, coming from that background, it just feels really exciting and it's just a massive relief. It takes a lot of pressure off, actually, to know that people will go and see it. And in terms of pleasing everyone, I mean, I learned a long time ago with the kind of films that I've made that you can't ever please anyone.
Riz Ahmed, I want to thank you so much for coming in and spending some time with us today.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. When Q continues, Aurora has another performance for you. But first, prepare to hang out over a great meal. I'll talk to acrobats from the stage show Cuisine Confessions about finding purpose in food and backflips. Just the other day, I saw Melvin Diggs and Sydney Bateman make an omelet, and it was breathtaking. Probably sounds like a weird thing to say, but if you've seen what they do while they make omelets, you might hold your breath too. Melvin and Sydney are acrobats. They're both from St. Louis, Missouri, and they're on tour right now performing a stage show called Cuisine and Confessions, incorporating acrobatic acts with live on-stage cooking. Here's our conversation. Hope you brought snacks. Melvin Diggs, Sydney Bates, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you. I got to say, what you do looks really hard. It looks really scary. Can you just describe for anyone? I mean, this show goes across the country. Your show is only going on in Toronto. How do food and acrobatics come together in this show? Sydney, I'll start with you.
Well, acrobatics is the career, and food is so universal. I think everyone around the world, they have stories about relationships, drama, so many problems that take place in the kitchen.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily take place in the kitchen, but you share those stories in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so when you mix the two, we have dishes in the show that we prepare for the audience, and my dish specifically is a banana bread. And that banana bread for me is a time after every circus day, my coach prepares a banana bread, and we would have it every day. It probably was too much, but the story behind the banana bread is basically me being so happy with my friends and enjoying life as a kid when everything else was going bad. So.
And Melvin, you guys actually do make the food during the show?
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Wow, and
I'm the man behind the pasta at the end, you know, all those smiling faces from my pasta, you know.
When you sign up to be an acrobat to work as a performer, I don't think necessarily you think that cooking is going to be a big part of it.
No, I have no idea, no idea. You should have saw our faces when with the two directors that we worked with to create the show, when they approached us, like prior to our graduation of school, and they told us that we were going to be, that they were interested in working with us to do a show that involves being in the kitchen and cooking, and we both were like, what? Like, I was like, really?
How's this going to work?
Yeah, because we had nothing at all, just a blank canvas, And when they told us this, I just couldn't wrap my mind around creating a show that will, do so well in that atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So, but when we came together and when the show was complete and we learned all the personal stories and everything, it takes my breath away as well.
It fell right into place.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very weird, but the group, we gelled together so fast, and it's because of the personal stories.
Oh yeah, like literally we walked in. We had a couple of us knew each other from school, but we had a lot of new artists like from Argentina as well. Like so when they all came in, we didn't know each other. We had the language barrier as well. Some didn't speak so much English. So the first thing our directors had us do was step on stage, and you get into the deepest, darkest places of your life, what you've been through, and we told everybody everything immediately. So after that, there was no shyness, no being timid at all. Like we were ready to jump into it. Like I know you, so let's do it.
I got to say, this is, if you don't mind me saying so, this is the first acrobatic show I've ever seen in my life. How do you describe the kind of acrobatics that you guys perform?
Well, for us, acrobatics is acrobatics. You see it with gymnastics, you see it with everything. But for us, it's not just about the trick. It's not about performing the trick well It's about doing it with like effortless. It's about doing it and making the audience feel a particular way. Like when I'm doing a backflip, I'm not just doing a backflip. I'm doing a backflip that's going to hopefully touch you in a way while my story is playing in the background and make you, I don't know, feel a certain way, make you cry, make you understand where I came from and getting to know me in that aspect. Like, so it's not just a flip. It's way much more than that. It's the meaning behind it.
That's so funny. I mean, I think we imbue meaning into film, into television, into music, into poetry. But I up to this point in my life, I've never heard of a backflip imbued with a deeper meaning.
Oh, the body is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, tell me about that.
It expresses so many things. I can move a certain way, and my movements can tell how I feel that day.
Of course.
There's always emotion behind every movement on stage, every backflip, every jump you do, the way you do it. You can be dynamic in a movement, and you can show anger in that movement, or you can be super light, delicate, and you show sensibility in that movement. Yeah, and that's just the art behind circus and acrobatics and all of these technical things, because when you look at gymnastics, you see technique, no expression, no emotion behind anything. It's just the highest technique possible. But circus, you have very, very high technique, but you also have the story behind it.
Yeah, you can do like the simplest movement, and I mean just a forward roll, and it will make you like I can look at a double back, and then I can look at a forward roll. A double back is 2 flips in the air. A forward roll is just you just roll your body on the ground, and I can make the audience feel so much more just from doing that forward roll, and it's one of the easiest things in my repertoire.
But the monologues that are playing at the time are describing your lives. And Sydney, I know that your uncle was killed. I know when he was a young age, and this is something that comes up in the show, and this is something that you talk about. I mean, I can't imagine that that's easy to bring to the stage in front of strangers.
It's not. But when Melvin said when we first started the creation, we had 10 minutes of basically opening up to people you don't even know. Once you air things like that, I'm not going to say dirty laundry, but when you air your deepest secrets, there's nothing else to hide. You're not hiding behind that person inside of you that's very scared. You open up, and I'm open. Let's work. Let's have fun. Let's be friends. Let's become family members.
But what about the audience? I mean, I can only imagine, like, it's one thing to open up to people you've already opened up to, but there's also people like me. There's strangers who are sitting down hearing these stories.
After 250 shows, it becomes another story. It's very emotional when you have your mother, your brother, or your family member in that audience, but it's just another story. You kind of like tune it out, but then when you look at the people with the faces and things like that, you say, "Oh my gosh, this is my story."
Yeah, it's crazy. Like after we do tell very emotional and very like deep things on stage, and for us, maybe in your head, it goes through a couple times like, okay, maybe that's a lot to say to someone, but at the end of the show, when you have the people coming to you saying like, "Wow, you touched me in a way that made me cry." Like actually, I had a similar situation that I went through in my life that I don't like to talk about, but you guys made me open to be able to express it and not be afraid, whether it's in front of strangers or just kind of just to take that weight off your shoulders. And like, it's all worth it. By the end of the day, it's all worth it.
I can't thank both of you enough for coming in today. I really appreciate it. And speaking of that, yeah, I mean, if you ever want a show and suck in your stomach the entire time you're watching it, go watch this show.
I'm left behind with an empty hole, and everything I am is gone.
Aurora has another electrifying performance for you when Q returns. We're going to leave you today with another performance from Aurora from her latest record, All My Demons Greeting Me as a Friend.
I went too far when I was begging on my knees.
Remember, for more performances, uncut interviews, and full episodes of QTV, pay us a visit at cbc.ca/Q. My name is Tom Power. Later on.
I went too far and kissed the ground beneath your feet, begging for your love, begging for us to meet, crying, give me some love, give me some love and hold me, give me some love and hold me tight. Oh, give me some love, give me some love and hold me, give me some love and hold me tight.
I try to reach for another soul so I can feel whole. Oh, give me some love.